But I can understand anti-Muslim hatred, because when you see Muslim terrorists, when you see a government that's trying to impose Sharia law, when you see Muslim rape gangs...
The government's not trying to impose Sharia law. That's utter rubbish.
No, when they allow Sharia courts, when they're trying to impose Islamophobia laws, when they're allowing Muslim rape gangs to get away with it, obviously there is Muslim hatred. That's all they see. You can't blame them, because some Muslim communities come to this country and expect the country to change for them. And when it doesn't, they're called racist. But there's nothing racist about trying to protect your values, British values and way of life. It's called patriotism. And that's something that Labour have to recognise. We are not a Muslim country, and those that come here who are Muslim have to recognise that and not try and impose their way of life on others.
And I think reform needs to learn that taking individual crimes by individual Muslim people and then aligning that with the whole of the Muslim community is wrong, reprehensible, and it is racist. But
we don't do that. But we don't. I'm Muslim myself. No, we don't. I don't blame my father or my family for the Muslim rape gangs. That is a particular group of disgusting men.
Absolutely.
And it's got nothing to do. Absolutely. But your party looked it over, and your party is still trying to cover it up. Yes, they are. They're trying to silence them. So when you
this government is trying to change the law to allow previous cases that had been turned down to be properly investigated, and thousands of cases are coming forward.
Why was it turned down, Bill? Because your councillors and your MPs and your party looked it over. That's why. And it's only now that you're under public pressure to look it over that you're opening up again.
I've debated this issue before, Layla. Go back to the 2012, 2013, when Keir Starmer, as Director of Public Prosecutions, was one of the first people to grip this issue and say there's a real problem with grooming gangs and we need to overturn the law.
He wasn't part of the Labour Party then, and 250,000 girls were groomed and tortured under Labour constituencies, and your councillors and your MPs looked it over, looked the other way to protect their votes.
True.
So when the public see that we have a political party that is pandering to a Muslim vote, debating whether it's a criminal offence to criticise Islam, allowing Sharia courts to flourish, and then overlooking Muslim rape gangs, and then we have a prevent system that is actually chasing so-called far-right fantasy crimes and denying
the biggest number of referrals to the prevent programme are on the far right.
Well, that is a problem, because
we have had
no terrorist attacks in this country from the so-called far right. We have had it from Islamic terrorists.
What about the guy who murdered Joe Cox? What about the man that murdered Joe Cox?
Listen, I'm not overlooking that. It was a terrible thing.
You just overlooked it.
No,
you just said there's no evidence of far-right extremism. And there was a far-right extremist who murdered a Labour MP.
Relax.
Yeah, I'm not relaxing, because I get very angry when you disgracefully misrepresent the picture.
Are you saying that far-right terrorism is a bigger danger to this country than Islamic terrorism? Is that what you're saying?
I think they're both a threat and a danger to this country.
Do you think they're an equal threat?
And I actually think
so you're comparing one horrific death to July 7th, the bridge. You're comparing that to one death. We have ISIS. We have so many Islamic terrorists. We have the Muslim Brotherhood that has infiltrated this country through the boat. And you are saying that prevent should focus on far-right extremism.
No,
you have lost the plot, mate. You've lost the plot, Bill.
I'm talking about the referrals by the agencies to the prevent programme, and the majority or the biggest number are on the far right. I actually think. Hold on.
Defunct. Prevent has no use.
You've got to stop interrupting.
I'm interrupting the Perrier. I'm going to the White House. Goodbye.
You're witnessing one of the most intense, raw political confrontations this nation has faced in years. And truthfully, it reveals everything about why Britain is so fragmented today. On one hand, a Labour MP is struggling to justify his party's record. On the other, a Reform councillor refusing to let years of excuses and silence continue. This wasn't a discussion. This was a political annihilation. The moment Islam, extremism, grooming gangs, and Sharia courts were mentioned, the entire dialogue erupted. And here's the key point. The Reform Councillor wasn't targeting everyday British Muslims. She was exposing Labour's hypocrisy, deliberate ignorance, and the mishandling, or outright neglect, of issues within their own areas for decades. Yet the Labour MP attempted to turn every critique into accusations of racism, as if that single word would silence everyone. Not this time. The councillor highlights exactly what millions already recognize, that when people arrive in Britain, they are expected to embrace British values, not the reverse. And still, Labour politicians act as though acknowledging this basic truth is some kind of offence. Rather than confronting grooming gang failings, rather than addressing concerns about extremism, rather than recognizing community fears, they fall back on the same worn-out narrative. You're racist. You're exaggerating. You're misinformed. But the Reform Councillor arrived prepared. She exposed the 250,000 girls abused, the ignored reports, the councillors who looked the other way, and Labour's focus on shielding certain voting blocs instead of defending victims. And the Labour MP? He had nothing but denial and emotional panic. Each time he was cornered, he attempted to divert the discussion to far-right referrals, as if a spreadsheet could erase the lived reality of terrorism and grooming scandals. Then he did the unthinkable. He equated a single horrific murder with years of ISIS attacks, 7/7, bridge bombings, and radical networks openly operating across the UK. It was a total collapse of his argument, and the councillor recognized it immediately. She didn't allow him to wriggle free. She made it crystal clear. Prevent is broken. Communities don't trust it. And the government keeps pretending the threat isn't what it truly is. This confrontation wasn't merely intense. It revealed the deep decay in how Labour politicians react to uncomfortable realities. Each time the Reform Councillor highlighted specific failures, the Labour MP's response was identical: deny, distract, deflect. It was pure political cowardice on full display. This confrontation wasn't about Islam. It was about truth versus political spin, bravery versus fear, and a Labour Party seemingly more focused on safeguarding narratives than safeguarding people. And today, that facade finally cracked.